Hello everybody. This is the overview for Module 4B in the Advanced Dermatology course. Now this module, when you look through it, deals with pigmented skin lesions, melanoma, excisions on the trunk, some variations of an ellipse. It looks at the derm path of SCCs and seborrheic keratoses, and it also looks at this tutorial topic of epidermodysplasia verruciformis. So if you read through the material that's here, look at some of the videos, these will be some of the topics that will in fact be covered. In the actual live webinar itself, though, I'm going to concentrate on some specific elements from within these topics. So I want to look at lentigo maligna and its management and issues that arise. I want to look at acrolentiginous melanoma because it's one variant of melanoma that's often missed, and it has very characteristic dermatoscopic presentations, and it has histological issues. I also want to look at just layered closures, how important these are anywhere in the body, but particularly on the back, for getting good apposition of edges and for getting a good firm scar. If we've got time, we'll look at SCC with perineural spread, because this is a particularly virulent variant of squamous cell carcinoma. And we'll certainly go through the histopathology of SCCs in that case, just comparing the two, because both of them have a thickening of the epidermis. In one, the cells are atypical, in the other, the cells may be pigmented. So there's some good histopathology in SCCs and seborrheic keratoses. Let's just have a quick flick through this module just now. This video just goes through all the images and gives my comments on those images. This is just the dermatoscopy of a recurrence in a shave that's been done of a pigmented lesion. And dermatoscopically, you can see this is quite atypical. But that's the problem. That's what the recurrences in shaves look like. With benign pigmented lesions, we were looking initially at nevi and freckles. Remember, in freckles, or phyllides, I should say, you're basically looking at an increase of melanin in keratinocytes with probably a normal number of melanocytes. In nevi, you've got a benign tumor of melanocytes and nevus cells. Melanocytes still have dendrites. Nevus cells lose their dendrites, and certainly lose them as they drop into the dermis, forming part of a dermal nevus. So that's how they look different. But they still stayed with S100 and other special melanocytic stains. We used to mainly describe nevi in terms of being junctional, or compound, or congenital nevi. Now some people have a classification where they look at them in terms of their dermatoscopic appearance, because that appearance changes with age. When you're young, dermatoscopically, you have nevi with a lot of clods there, especially peripherally. But as you get older, these nevi will mature and then develop a reticular network. The speckled lentiginous nevus, it looks quite dramatic. Melanoma has developed in speckled lentiginous nevus, but it's very, very rare. Blue nevus, you've just got to know the two types. There's a cellular blue nevus and the ordinary homogeneous blue nevus. Cellular blue nevus is particularly seen in the scalp. The labial melanotic macule, this always brings patients in. It's again a type of lentigine where there are an increase in the number of melanocytes in the basal layer, but really it has no malignant potential at all, a labial melanotic macule, and we usually just shave them off for cosmetic reasons. Atypical nevi we'll go into in more detail later. The dysplastic nevus syndrome. You should have a read around those. When you look at melanomas, we classically divide them into the superficial spreading and the nodular. The nodular type are the worrying type because they can grow very quickly and they can reach a significant size sometimes within 2 to 3 months, or less in fact. when they grow very rapidly. They don't have much of a superficial growing phase. They mainly just grow down deeply, and hence they reach the lymphatics and the blood vessels quickly, and therefore they can spread quickly. So you never monitor a nodular pigmented lesion. If you've got any concerns about a nodular pigmented lesion, you cut it out. You don't sort of say, I'll see you back in 3 months, because if it's a nodular melanoma and it develops in that time, it's too late. The superficial spreading type have really quite an extensive radial growth phase. They just grow with nests and atypical cells along the dermoepidermal junction without invading much into the dermis at all. And they can grow in that phase for many years sometimes. So the other thing that's important, note that most melanomas arise de novo rather than from a pre-existing nevus. And watch the amelanotic melanoma arising in the elderly man in the back, because often it's hypomelanotic or even amelanotic. Lentigo maligna you're going to see a lot of in the elderly, especially mixed with solar lentigos and flat seborrheic keratoses. So you've got to know a little bit about this condition, and we're going to go into that in the actual webinar itself, discussing the issues that arise with lentigo maligna. Acral antigenous melanoma we're also going to talk in some detail about, because these two are the ones that can be missed and not recognized for what they are. Congenital nevi, the neurocutaneous nevus syndrome. This little girl had the neurocutaneous nevus syndrome. Multiple nevi, as well as these on the face, congenital nevi there with a lot of hairs. She had a garment nevus as well. Half her body was covered by a large congenital nevus. And kids with this picture can in fact have atypical nevus type cells in the brain itself. And sometimes they'll develop a melanoma actually there. They have to have scans done when they're young and again at around puberty, because those are the 2 times when melanoma is likely to develop. Halonevi, I haven't got any pictures up there. They're of some importance because they represent an immune attack on the nevus cells, so you get a bit of pallor around the nevus. And halonevi can be presage the development of vitiligo. You start attacking the nevus cells in the nevus, and then you end up producing antibodies that attack all the melanocytes in the skin elsewhere. So if you see someone with multiple halonevi, have a look in the flexures, the groin, round the eye, see if there's any signs of systemic vitiligo occurring. Spitz nevi, that's another topic in itself. The issue with these is that histologically they look like melanoma, whereas they're occurring in young children either as pink lesions or half of them come as black or very dark lesions as well. And there are things called spitzoid melanomas, lesions that look like a Spitz nevus, but because of the age group in which they're occurring, not in children but in adults, the pathologist will sometimes feel that this is in fact a spitzoid melanoma. A big topic, one that really we need to spend time on at some later stage in a later part of the course. What else are we going to look at? That's a pink Spitz nevus, by the way, there. Now, these are some other aspects of acral antigenous melanoma, and we'll use these images plus others in discussing that topic as well. Moving on from some of these pigmented lesions, look at excisions on the trunk. That was a surgical topic for today. And there are various important things that come in. I think it's the shape of the lesion that's important in terms of the direction of the ellipse rather than underlying resting skin tension lines. Undermining is necessary. Remember, the dermis on the back is usually very thick. And the good thing about that is that you can do a layered closure. We'll talk about layered closures during the webinar. And you have to be confident in doing layered closures. It is the most important thing. You don't just stick a lot of external sutures round with a great deal of pressure on them, leaving the rowing boat type sign marks afterwards. You should have dissolving subcutaneous sutures there holding the dermis together. You should even put deeper sutures in than that to close the dead space in the fat layer. Or else you'll get blood accumulating there, you'll get a hematoma, and you may subsequently get infection and wound dehiscence. There are other variations of ellipses you can do on the trunk. The lazy S repair is one that you'll often see carried out, and the S-plasty itself. So have a little look. By the way, the other one here, the crescent-shaped ellipse, to induce a curved outline. That's where you've got a curved area like this, and you've got a straight line here, and you close it by the rule of halves, and you end up with a curve. This can be of some importance when you're cutting things off the cheek, where you want the line of the scar to run in one of the resting skin tension lines. And the M-plasty as well, where your ellipse is going to come up close to an important structure, and you don't want it to cross that. You simply do the M-plasty. Have a little read of this section and go to the My Skin Cancer Consult section on this particular part of the surgical module and have a look at some of the other images that are there. In this particular module in DermPath, we're going to look at the histopathology of SCCs and seborrheic keratoses. And these were some other little issues. Remember, with SCC in situ, everything's confined to the epidermis, the atypical cells, and they'll extend down hair follicles. With an invasive SCC, it's breaking through the basement membrane and invading into the dermis. We'll have a little look at the difference between seborrheic keratosis and SCC in situ, just looking at that thickened acanthotic epidermis. We will certainly talk about SCC with perineural spread, because that's a very important situation, important clinical situation to know how to correctly manage. So we'll look through this mainly on the webinar itself and look at these images in some more detail. And we'll also look at seborrheic keratoses and compare and contrast those, especially with SCC in situ. There'll be some dermatoscopic images there too. There are variants of seborrheic keratoses that we'll look at, including this one, the melanoacanthoma, which looks exceptionally dark. And that's because you've got melanocytes extending much higher up into the dermis, into the epidermis than usual, with a lot of dendrites. And the dendrites are putting out a lot of melanin to all the keratinocytes, making it appear very dark like this. It's often slightly raised as well, but it can easily be mistaken for a melanoma. So we'll chat about melanoacanthoma as well. I haven't got an important journal article there. I'll see if I can find something of relevance. We may have time to look at epidermodysplasia verruciformis, which is a disorder associated with certain serotypes of papillomavirus, some of which are oncogenic and can increase the person's risk of developing a variety of skin cancers. Some can be associated with some underlying genetic defects of the immune system as well. So we'll look at that in a little bit more detail if we have time to. There are some cases in here that and references where you might want to follow this up. And there's this little bit here that is always important, and you see that in several other syndromes as well. If an SCC develops in the background of epidermodysplasia verruciformis, then radiation therapy is contraindicated. We won't probably have time to talk about atypical fibrous xanthoma. And there is a case here in Global Skin Atlas that we'll look at on dermatitis herpetiformis. It's particularly good vision very good images that Dr. Kieran Abar has submitted in this case to Global Skin Atlas. So I'll have a little talk about dermatitis epideriformis as well. I hope to see you there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.